Hey, I'm Jordan. I own Wayward Medical Staffing, and we specialize in rural travel nursing. This is our internal pay package calculator. This is the tool that we use to figure out how much we should pay our nurses. I'll walk you through the whole thing, how much the hospital pays the agency, us, how much we pay the nurses, taxes, bonuses, like the whole enchilada, right? So highlighted in yellow behind me, a hospital paid Wayward $57,000 and the nurse was paid just under 41,000. And if you want to know where the rest went, just buckle up because I'm going to break it all down. As spoiler alert, it's actually not what you think. We're similar to Chipotle, believe it or not. So what you're looking at behind me is a real contract from one of our direct clients. No MSPs, no middlemen, just like a clean, simple agreement between us and the facility. It's a small rural hospital in Montana. They pay surprisingly well. The nurses we send out here, they come back telling us it's like the most peaceful they've felt in years. There's a lot of like tried and true fans of rural travel nursing. It's really cool. I think it's because like I'm not trying to get too far off the point here, but it's just kind of an interesting thing because in Chicago, like you deal with a lot of gunshot wounds and craziness, but out here it's like a cow gets loose on the helipad, right? Like it's kind of funny. It's calm, scrappy, a little weird, but in the best way. Anyway, let's break it down. So the page that we're looking at right now is a little confusing. There's a million numbers on here. There's a lot of calculations, number crunching. I want to start with somewhere where you guys would be a little more familiar, and that's the nurse pay, right? And then we'll work backwards from there. So if we go over to the traveler comp package, this is where we show travelers how much they would make. And it's not on our website right now because we went through an entire rebrand. We've got completely new colors, so don't be mad at me if you visit our website. It doesn't look like this, but if you can see down here, this contract makes 3,128 bucks a week. And that's on 410s in the ED. So if you look here, the regular pay is 47 bucks an hour. Total weekly is 1,800. The overtime is $100 an hour. And then the weekly stipend is 1,246. You add those together, that becomes the $3,128. And then there's the travel bonus as well here. That's $500. We do 50% on your first check and 50% on your last check. So 250 here and 250 there. We do that so you can help get you to the assignment, get some gas, some snacks, that type of thing, if you're driving or a plane ticket, whatever it would be, right? And I was showing this to a nurse, my buddy George, who I've worked with a couple of times, and he was really surprised that we did this. I thought that every travel nursing agency participated in this, but he seemed to think that it was really cool that Wayward did this. So I want to show everybody, hey, like we do some cool bonuses. On this other side, I'll go back to the pay package maker. If you can see up here, I've highlighted these new pieces in yellow. So this nurse who worked the rural Montana contract that we're talking about, she got $100 just for signing on with Wayward for the first time, and then she also referred a friend, so she got a $500 referral bonus, which was really cool. And I know people say that travel nursing is dead, but if you look down here at the mixed hourly rate, it's $76.47 an hour. And then you take the fact that most of that is non-taxable, you're really looking at, what is this, like $86 an hour, right? And for an ED nurse with 2 years of experience to come to a rural, kind of middle of nowhere location in Montana, this is a place where you can get back to your roots, charge your batteries, really make connections with your patients and give them the proper care that they feel for a 76, $86 an hour. I mean, this is, to me at least, really good money. So let's talk about what you guys came to this video, what you clicked for, right? And that's the margin. That's to see how much the agency makes. Now, if you look at this bill rate, it's $110. That means for every hour that a nurse works, the hospital will pay us $110. And then we have the overtime bill rate right here. It's $120. So every hour after 40, the hospital will pay us an extra 10 bucks basically, right? So the law is that you guys have to be paid 1.5 times, but that doesn't mean that the hospital has to pay us 1.5 times, if that makes sense. So just wanted to show the bill rate here, $110 an hour. And then over here, the full contract revenue, we made $57,000. The full contract expenses, we paid $8,665. And that's, for taxes and whatnot. I'll break this down in a second, but the traveler wages $40,664, and then the one-time expenses $1,600, and that's going to be between the health screening reimbursement, the referral fee, the bonus that we paid out, all that fun stuff, right? So to circle back on the full contract expenses, we can double click on it and it'll show me, oh, it calculates this from the weekly expenses. And then if you double click on the weekly expenses, it'll show you where it calculates that from. So it's the sum of these numbers here, and we'll scroll up, and it's going to be, I'll actually highlight these for you guys. Here we go. Boom. So the payroll costing, the malpractice insurance, healthcare cost burden, workers' comp insurance, SUDA, FUTA, these are taxes from the government, Social Security burden, the Medicare burden, and this is what we pay on our side. So like when you guys get your W-2 pay stub, you'll see that you guys paid, Medicare and Social Security, but the company also pays Medicare and Social Security, right? So it's both sides are paying for that, if that makes sense. So if we scroll down, we can see the profit that Wayward made for the 13-week contract, and that's going to be $6,270.60. That's 10.96% gross profit margin, so about 11%, right? And when I was younger, it was in the restaurant industry. Well, I worked at Burger King and a couple other places. The restaurant industry sounds way nicer, but yeah, so 11%. I was curious, like, what was like a popular food chain that everyone would know? How much do they make? Like, what is a similar comparison? I wonder if it's different or higher, or lower, because the restaurant industry notoriously has low margins. And so I looked up Chipotle, and apparently the gross margin on a burrito is 17%. So yeah, we make actually a little less than a chicken bowl with guacamole, but I don't get to charge an extra 275 for the guac, right? Like it is what it is. So I thought it was kind of funny that we actually have smaller margins than a Chipotle burrito. But what's even crazier is the full contract gross profit. We get that money from you working, but then out of that money, that's how I cover, recruiter salaries, recruiter commissions, my, business taxes, job boards. We have to pay Vivian to play on Vivian, software. There's all sorts of like tracking and automation and all this crap, and everything else that it takes to run an actual business, right? If you imagine pens and staplers and computers and stuff, right? So the margins are really lean, and they actually, 11% lean, but they actually stay lean by design. There's been a lot of post-COVID pressure from both sides, right? So we kind of have two clients. We've got like the nurses as our clients, and then we also have like the hospitals as our clients, and we kind of have to balance those two out. And the hospitals don't want to pay as much money as they used to pay for COVID, obviously. Nobody wants to pay more than they have to. And the nurses, they don't want to travel if the pay doesn't make financial sense. Nobody wants to go anywhere for $2,000 a week. And that makes perfect sense. I'm not trying to get anybody to go anywhere for $2,000 a week, but because of those, two conflicting goals that the nurses and the hospitals have, the travel nursing agencies who still want to stay competitive against all their other customers, who want nurses to come work for them, who want more clients, have had to decrease their profit margins, and Wayward's actually decreased by like 50% over the last couple of years. But yeah, it's been a really interesting place. Hospitals pay less, but nurses still want more. So you get the conundrum. So now let's take a look at what kills agency profits. If you keep your eyes up here to what's highlighted, the full contract gross profit and the margin percentage, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. I'm going to play with a couple things here to show you, what kills agency profit, right? So an MSP can take a 5% cut. A lot of people don't realize or know what an MSP is. It stands for Managed Service Provider. And basically, they're a middleman between agencies and hospital systems. So instead of a hospital system getting bombarded just the way that you guys are bombarded by a million recruiters calling them all the time saying, hey, can I do business with you? The same thing happens to hospitals. And so they've put a middleman in place, and the middleman takes a cut, right? So they take 5%, and look what happens to the margin. So it automatically decreases and gets cut in half. So we were looking at 3,004. Excuse me. We are now looking at $3,410.60, and the margin is halved. Basically, it went from 11% to 6%. Right? So that's a killer if you have an MSP. Then the next piece that would hurt is if we don't get paid for orientation. Some hospitals keep this in the contract, right? So if I change this orientation, we could do an unbillable 12 hours for your first shift, right? That puts the margin down to 3%. We make a total of $2,000 on the contract. There's a lot of different rules that the hospitals could choose to uh, make. Basically, we could do an unbillable 4 hours of the contract. So it just really depends on what that looks like. But then also we could have a cancellation policy, right? And that's, I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but really important to ask your recruiter about. If I take this contract, are the hours guaranteed? And even if the hours are guaranteed, does the facility have a cancellation policy? There's some crazy ones where they could cancel 4 shifts for 13 weeks, or they could cancel 1 shift per week, 1 shift per month, right? There's all these different kinds of rules. We're just going to do kind of a simple one just to show, but if they could cancel 3 shifts for 13 weeks, our profit, if you see on this right side here, there's this canceled shifts thing. I don't know if you guys can see this. We would make a 1% margin, or $900 for a full 13-week contract. So that would really kill the margins there. So if you take a day off during your contract, this is why agencies are like, oh, hey, let me prorate the stipend and all that stuff, because they're taking a beating on their margins. Not that it matters to you guys, but I just want you to know, like, oh, this is why this is happening, right? And so this is why direct contracts matter. There's more room in the profit margin for agencies to pay you more, basically. Not that all of the margin would go to you, but some of it is passed on, especially when we're trying to be competitive, like Wayward is. Not every agency passes them, but I mean, if we don't have an MSP involved, right? It's just boom, doubles the profit. If we don't have the orientation rules, the cancellation policies, and I really wanted to show you guys this so you have a better idea of what's going on in the industry and why things work, kind of a behind the bill rate, sneak peek behind the curtain things, because I think that if you understand more, you can negotiate better, right? And I actually made a guide. It's called 5 Phrases That Make Recruiters Fight to Pay You More. And they're the exact lines that I've seen land nurses thousands more during their contract. And it's without burning bridges, right? So if you just drop your email at the link below, I'll actually send it straight to you. It's super easy to use. It's just like 5 one-sentence phrases that will help recruiters appreciate you and want to pay you more. I genuinely mean they will fight to pay you more if you say these things to them. Some people will say, well, hey, why don't I just start my own agency and then I'll travel for myself and completely cut out the agencies and cut out the middleman, right? And that's a really smart idea until a lot of people run into the problem of collecting from hospitals, right? So we may have made $6,270.60 on the contract, and that is about $482 a week, right? But that is tough because it doesn't, you get paid weekly, but we bill the hospital and they pay their invoices a lot of times late. Hospitals are notorious for paying them on the very last day, and sometimes not even paying them at all. There's been a lot of agencies and friends that I have that own agencies that no longer own them because the hospital was so late on their bills. I mean, I'm fronting payroll every week. I'm like borrowing money from the bank to pay you guys because I don't have just, I don't know, if we have 20 nurses making $3,000 a week, right? What is let me pull up a calculator on that. I probably should have done this before, but 20 times 3,000, I don't have $60,000 a week that I'm just going to hand out. What is that a month times 4? $240,000. I don't have this kind of money. And so I'm borrowing it from the bank. They're taking their cut as well. And then I'm paying you guys. But that's because the hospital, I mean, I have one facility that hasn't paid me in, I think, over 110 days right now. And so I'm working on collections and billing and getting a hold of their payroll department, and it's a whole job in itself just to get the hospitals to pay me. And so, yeah, it's a little difficult. It's basically like that $482 that we're supposedly making every week. It's monopoly money until the cash actually like hits my bank account, right? And unlike Chipotle, like when things fall apart, I don't just get to like wrap it up in foil and call it a day. People think agencies are making bank, but the truth is we're running really lean, especially when we do things the right way. A lot of nurses also think, like, why don't I just go 1099 and keep it all, right? And that's a totally fair question, but here's what that actually looks like. Instead of getting paid weekly, you wait the 30 to 90 days for the invoices to drop. You pay both sides of payroll taxes, the employer side and the employee side. You carry your own workers' comp, malpractice, liability insurance. You credential yourself. You have to find a workers' comp insurance place, a malpractice place, and a liability insurance place, which is a treasure hunt on its own. You have to invoice, follow up, chase payments. Basically, you become the agency, right? The sales team, the recruiter, the accountant, the collections department. Like, it's kind of a Herculean lift if you're going to do it on your own, and people do. I'm not saying it's not, but it's like sometimes people find that it's worth it to pay an agency to take care of these things for them. You know what I mean? And because I know somebody's already typing this in the comments, they're saying, why even use an agency at all? Just go internal and cut out the middleman. And it's totally fair. This is a good idea. Some internal travel programs are decent, right? You're already in their system, you get paid stipends, big hospital networks are out there like Dignity or Common Spirit. They might give you access to multiple facilities across a region, but the downside is like you're still locked into their system. So you've got options, but they're all the same corporate sandbox. You know what I mean? The same EMR, the same politics, the same float pool, same blackout dates. You're still at the mercy of one organization's rules, their pay structure, priorities. With travel agencies, you get offers from multiple systems, multiple states, different contracts. You hate your unit, we'll move you. You need better housing, we've got ideas, right? And just for the shameless plug here, you want to charge your batteries and work a rule contract, Wayward's got your back, right? Come work with us. But yeah, internal travel gives you a job, which you probably already have, while agency travel gives you options, right? In this industry, mobility is freedom. It's called travel nursing. That's what it's all about. So yeah, we run leaner than a Chipotle burrito, right? Those things are pretty hefty, right? Chipotle burritos are not lean, but at least I don't want to speak for everybody, but Wayward Medical does run lean, right? 11% compared to Chipotle burrito 17%. So we've had weeks where payroll's due and a hospital ghosts us, and somehow a cow ends up on the helipad, but we keep showing up because we love what we do, and I think it still matters. But here's what I believe, right? Rural hospitals are one of the most underrated opportunities in travel nursing. Everyone's chasing the highest bill rate, but these small town facilities, they need nurses like you. They offer something that big city hospitals can't, right? A reset, a breather, a chance to reconnect with the work. I didn't start Wayward to chase massive margins. I started it because rural healthcare got left behind. Big agencies ignore these facilities all the time. RNs are burned out, shuffled around, treated like just another chart number. And I saw that and I felt it. I worked for a large agency before I started here and saw some not so awesome practices. That's why I built Wayward to fix this, right? We send travelers on purpose-driven assignments to communities where nurses aren't just needed, they're actually vital. I've had nurses tell me that the crash cart also doubled as the supply closet. It's not glamorous, but it's real. It's gritty, right? There's kind of like a badge of honor in working in rural healthcare a lot of times. It's the kind of place where you feel needed, and that's why we run lean. We run direct, and we run with heart. We're basically like the food truck of healthcare staffing. No frills, no fluff, just real nourishment for rural hospitals. So if you found this interesting, maybe even flip the script on your perspective on how much agencies make, you should totally share this with a friend, especially if they like Chipotle, and definitely subscribe, right? I want to help travelers make the most money possible, even if it's not with my agency. I'll be in the comments just to help people with a calculator and probably a burrito. So just just hit me in the comments. But no, honestly, you should watch this next video. I think it really like enlightens the industry on what's going on with Vivian. It's pretty wild. The title is Why 90% of Jobs on Vivian Are Fake. And I'm Jordan. I run Wayward Medical Staffing, and this is how we do things differently with receipts and burritos.